Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe Sam Yeager, along with Joshua Bursch from Joshua Bursch Motorsports. Link in the video description to his channel, where I know later on, Josh, you got IndyCar you're going to be broadcasting, and then, of course, MotoGP, the Sprint, the Grand Prix. Let's go ahead and start with MotoGP, but before we do, a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark Robert, and our newest one, David, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. We appreciate you all helping us pay the bills here, staying on the air, and getting to the track. Once we hit $500 or more, we can be at the track more frequently. And of course, everyone that has bought us a cup of coffee, you too could buy us a coffee. One-time contributions, or you can do multiple cups of coffee for any on-air folks right here in the Grid Network. Joshua, the French Grand Prix, the weekend's off to a dramatic start, I guess it's fair to say. We saw a flawless ride from Jorge Martin. Just went out there, took the lead, pulled away, never looked back. This is sort of what I anticipate from Jorge in the past, but it just seems too often he crashes out or he's pushing himself too hard. Doesn't have good runs. Now that we see this, where he just dominated the sprint race, can we see him improve and sort of rebuild that confidence like he seemed to have early on when he first started and be a contender for the win tomorrow?
They've had a really bad start to the season, haven't they, Prima Pramac? So it's really refreshing to see Martin take a sprint race win. I 100% think that we're going to see him in contention for the win tomorrow. My pick would still be one of the KTMs. I haven't made my mind up between Brad Binder, who starts 10th tomorrow, or Jack Miller, who starts 4th, who crashed out in the sprint. But I really like Jorge Martin. I think this weekend he's sort of been building up to something like this. He did well in practice sessions, did really good in qualifying, and then he capitalized on a great sprint. So I think he's rebuilding the confidence with a bike. I think the Jerez test really helped as well to understand what was wrong with the Prima Pramac setup. So I think it's on the road to the right track, and I'm really considering that he could at least be on the podium tomorrow. But it's a longer race tomorrow, and another 13 laps. Anything can happen. Don't rule out Bagnaia just yet, although he did slip back after getting pole to Marquez.
Yeah, yes, you mentioned Bagnaia. We got a much longer race. That first couple laps, he was leading. Looked like he could try to get away. But then, once Jorge got around him, he started slipping back. Fell down to 4th place, but managed to come up to try to get that podium finish. But overall, it seemed like Pecco was really struggling out there for a while. So, and we saw him and Marc Marquez, he's back, raced really hard. At one point, they touched. Very aggressive racing between those two. Were you surprised by Pecco's performance today? And does Marc Marquez's performance indicate he's really ready to fight for a podium? Because, as you mentioned, 13 additional laps tomorrow in the French Grand Prix.
I think with Pecco today, I was surprised he didn't get out front, considering it looked like he was holding back, like he was deliberately trying not to throw it down the road and crash. He was really conservative, really just sort of easing himself into it, which isn't usually what we see from him. So I think we're going to have to understand that Bagnaia is going to go into tomorrow's race all out for the win, because he lost crucial points today, finishing 3rd, I think. So, no, yeah, 3rd, because Binder finished 2nd. So he allowed moves to overtake so it didn't compromise the main race, which is weird. He's now got a very weird head-on right now where the sprint race is damage limitation for what could be Sunday, which isn't what everyone else is thinking, because they're going for bigger points in the extra races we get. It's equivalent, and it's an extra half season added on when we add in the extra 20 races we get this year. So it's effectively running 30 times as well, not just the 40. So I think it's important to remember that Bagnaia is trying to limitize the damage after crashing out twice this season. So he's, after winning in Spain, he wants to win here and get as much points over now his total championship contender, which is Brad Binder, who finished 2nd. So, and in Marc Marquez, I think it was an opportunity for him to flex the muscles a little bit here today and just sort of get out there, hit the front, see how he can ride, see how good the new Calax spikes is as well. After he crashed it in practice too, rebuilt it for this morning, used it in qualifying, liked it, used it in the race. as well. Liked it. Going to be on it tomorrow in the race, not the warm-up. So there's something good there, definitely coming from Mark. But can he hold up for full Grand Prix distance? That'll be the key tomorrow. He slipped back to 5th after 13 laps. Maybe he'll slip down to about 8th in the main Grand Prix tomorrow.
Main Grand Prix, as you mentioned, it's really interesting. We seem like that's a Pecco damage limitation in the sprints. Brad Binder, second place, as you mentioned, he goes all out on these sprints, it seems. And then in the Grand Prix, hasn't been really bringing the results like he's been hoping. But a lot of folks, especially for a pick winner, I was surprised so many people were picking KTM bikes. Brad Binder, Jack Miller, off to a great start in the race, but then he lied out early, was done for the day. KTM seems to have a lot of folks sort of convinced like they could be contending for a championship, which for me is just a surprise compared to where they were last year. Now, this year, showing the pace, with no Yamaha's not there, are you convinced that KTM riders could be up there with Ducati racing for a championship in MotoGP?
Do you know, I am actually really convinced because they found something before the Spanish Grand Prix and they turned the bike up to 11, and that's what got them the demon starts after both the standing starts and the red flag period. So that was really good for the KTMs. Then in testing, they found more speed on the Tuesday after the Spanish Grand Prix, and they've applied it immediately to the bike, and it's working really well. We are seeing some really good opportunities from the KTMs, and they're this year's Aprilia. Basically, it's the next year's regulations from the engine freeze getting removed. So they are this year's Aprilia. They're going to be the big surprise that nick a couple of wins out there for the season. So I think KTM really are going to be up there for the championship, which is fantastic because Brad Binder deserves it and Jack Miller deserves to be in a seat as well that can do it. So we'll see how they both react tomorrow with, as I said, Binder came through from 10th to 2nd in 13 laps and was beginning to hunt down Jorge Martin. He could easily be in contention for the win tomorrow. Jack Miller had a silly mistake down at turn 7, but was running in 3rd before he crashed out after starting 4th. He starts 4th for the Grand Prix tomorrow. So they can push forward. So I do think KTMs are going to be the biggest challenge to the factory Ducati this season.
Yeah, I would say I could see them being the biggest challenge to Ducati, especially Aprilia. After last year, they don't seem to have that kind of pace like they did 1 year ago for a championship. It just seems to me still a bit of a surprise to think we could be talking about Brad Binder contending for a championship, but with so many sprint races, his aggressive racing in the sprints compared to Pecco, I think that was just really great how you mentioned damage limitations. Pecco's not going to run away with this. So the sprint race really, I think, could make a lot of changes. Of course, the sprint race, this is what? So few sprint races in already. Yeah. But for the Grand Prix, this is number 1,000 coming up in France. So, of course, a lot of people are going to be watching this. Fabio Quartararo probably was originally thinking, this is great, the 1,000 Grand Prix in my home country. Probably doesn't have that exact same thought. His weekend has been horrible, and then the race, just as we were going to on board with him on the MotoGP coverage, slides out of the race. Not the greatest qualifying effort. Yamaha just looks like a mess this year. Franco Morbidelli, the other Yamaha rider, 13th place, no points scored. Now, we know in other series, like Formula One last year, Ferrari, when they were struggling, people were talking about change the team principal. Other sports, change the crew chief, change the driver. Now that MotoGP, Yamaha just seems to be, again, falling behind. Could we start hearing people talk about change the leadership in the team, change the mechanics, or even change the riders?
I think we could, because I think with all this at Yamaha, it's getting a bit ridiculous now. They've gone from a championship-winning team to falling back, and it isn't through rider. It's mainly just rider error with Morbidelli, but I'm surprised Morbidelli still got a seat. I've said that on this show before. Quartararo is sort of propping up the team on his shoulders on his own, and there's no development, there's no leadership there, and it's getting a bit like, well, where do we go? Where do we push? As my laptop does another Freaky Friday moment. So sorry if my camera freezes. There we go. Can make it back now. It just keeps the screen goes black as well. It's trying to adjust things because there's a HDMI cable loose. But yeah, So I think there needs to be a complete restructure. Yamaha started failing when they got rid of Maverick Vinales in 2021, halfway through the season. That's when they started failing because they brought in Morbidelli against Quartararo. Quartararo went for the championship and got it only because Bagnaia had such a terrible second half of the season. So, I think, honestly, like you and Mia, Quartararo is a great rider, and they're both the world champions, but they're starting to lose the edge a little bit. They're not performing, and they're at risk of being one-time champions, the pair of them. And I think with Fabio Quartararo, there's a lot of, he came in as the next great thing to beat Marc Marquez. The wheel-to-wheel races they had together, as short as it was brilliant. And I think Quartararo, who's now very much at the front of the field, is starting to slip back a lot. 5 races this year, 4 times he's had to go through qualifying 1. That is not on. That bike is a mess with the front brakes not working correctly. The handling's terrible. They're crashing it too often. Morbidelli's not doing anything to help Quartararo. Quartararo's not doing anything to help the team as well. They've got nowhere to go. Yamaha in a free fall, like Suzuki were all those years ago in, 18, 19, after having a great 2017. They're in a free fall. So someone needs to come in, change Yamaha. I think Morbidelli needs to go. I think they need to get a new rider in that Fabio can work with. They need to both have their heads knocking together and say, look, you've got to develop this bike now. You've really got to start improving. And I don't think we're going to see it happen this year, unfortunately, as the cameras go wobbly again. Let me just fix that, actually, by taking one of these out. I might do it. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. And we'll have to see if it's a big improvement. But right now, no, they're in a free fall and they're not going to be world champions this year. That is 100% sure.
Yeah, I have no confidence in them getting the world championship. The way they're looking, I don't know which track they would potentially be strong for a win. It looks pretty hard for them, especially since KTM seems to be up there now. We got the independent riders where Alex Rins stole the win in Coda. You mentioned about Mir, 14th place, and it's just so crazy to think we were talking about 2020. Got the championship with Suzuki. Looked like big things ahead. Suzuki left. He's with Honda, and that just seems to be going nowhere. Especially Marc Marquez comes back, almost puts it on the podium. Possibly lost that edge as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this French Grand Prix tomorrow. And of course, we'll recap it on the show tomorrow. IndyCars, they're racing later today. You're going to be broadcasting, calling their coverage. The Indianapolis road course of hosting the GMR Grand Prix. And a surprise, Christian Lundgaard on the pole. And it's not just him. It's Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, teammates, all of them in the top 10. You got Jack Harvey, 4th place. Huge effort. No secret he's been struggling. Graham Rahal, 8th place. Massive effort considering after Texas we're talking about where is Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. Could they improve in the month of May? Well, here we are, month of May, Indianapolis. All of a sudden, they turned out, but they got some stiff competition. All 3 McLarens are in the top 10. You have 3 Chip Ganassi racing vehicles in the top 10, including Marcus Ericsson. And Kyle Kirkwood, who won in Long Beach, in the top 10 for the Lone Andretti Autosport. Do you believe Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, with the struggles this year and such tough competition they're dealing with, could they pull out a victory?
It's going to be very unlikely if they can do it. And I know I hate to say it because it was such a great pole position from Lundgaard, but it's such a long race at Indy road course as well. And the weather's in the air as well. That could play a factor. And the curbs are brutal here. Would you remember NASCAR when we did the double with them and the 6-7 chicane as well down the boulevard? It causes problems. It does in IndyCar as well. Screen's gone off again. So, yeah, I wonder what is going on with my laptop. Is it starting to blinker to death? Oh dear, it's not going to be a thing. I'm hoping it's an HDMI cable problem. But yeah, so in the warm-up session we just had about an hour ago before we came on air, Lundgaard was 13th fastest, but Rahal was 6th. So they were running different strategies. And then we had Jack Harvey in 15th. So they've got pace still. I reckon we can see at least Lundgaard on the podium. But if that rain plays a factor, they're going to have to get the strategy so right. And I think, actually, we're going to be looking more at Pato O'Ward further down the field as a more likely candidate to come up there and take some honours. But I would love it if Christian Lundgaard could win it. I absolutely would after taking his first pole position trophy yesterday.
Lundgaard, he has to be feeling pretty good, but Pato O'Ward, who's in the top 10, I feel he has potentials to come up towards the front. He's been strong all year, just hasn't had the luck, really, when it comes down to the end. Marcus Ericsson always seems to put himself in position, and Kyle Kirkwood, I think, is going to be one driver we cannot count out. He's in the top 10. He just needs to have a clean, solid race, no mistakes from himself or the team. It's going to be very hard for Rahal Letterman Lanigan, I think, to just have one car on the podium. I think if they have one car on the podium, I think that's a success for Rahal Letterman Lanigan, considering where they were, because they have been nowhere before this weekend. Now all of a sudden they show up, they're going to have a big fight on hand. It's going to be really interesting. One team that wants to have more than one car in the podium, but no cars in the top 10, Team Penske. Will Power is the highest starting one in 12th place, matching his car number. You got right behind him Joseph Newgarden in 13th, and Scott McLaughlin, who has seemed to be up front quite a bit, 18th. Penske has dominated this race in the past and looked unstoppable. Do you believe they could claw their way back after what we saw in qualifying and this morning's practice?
I don't think so. I don't. Penske seem to be, ever since they got brought by Roger Penske and they come home to IMS now, they have not had good luck, have they? They really have struggled consistently. And especially during the month of May. I think Power took it a couple of years ago, didn't he? And that was sort of a bit of a smile for the captain. But on the road courses, it's never so much good luck. So I think they're going to sort of sacrifice today, I've got a feeling of, with Power so low down in qualifying. Look at the Penske's as well. We had Scott McLaughlin P7, Joseph Newgarden was P9, Will Power was 16th fastest as well. I'm just looking to see if there's another one I've missed out on the list. I don't think I have there. So, yeah, it was a surprising session, really. McLaughlin, I think, was the biggest surprise to get kicked out and not be in the Fast Six. So I think we're going to see a good opportunity for them to get some points, but not victories or anything like that. They are going to be just trailing at the back, I reckon, because they never go well on road courses at IMS. Stick to the 500. Stick to the 500.
The 500 is the biggest one. Maybe save your resources for that. Of course, more in practice, we saw Marcus Ericsson top the chart, up there in the top 3. Colton Herta, but he's starting 14th today. Roman Grosjean, his teammate, 18th, and Devlin DeFrancesco, 15th. Last year, Colton Herta, he became the first driver to win this race, not starting in the top 10, which was big. And of course, we all saw his epic save last year, where he had that car sideways under the changing conditions of wet weather, dry weather, wet line. Amazing effort. Starting 14th again. The weather, it's overcast. The chances of rain, slight. I saw it last I reported 35% chance of rain. Do you think Colton Herta or anyone outside the top 10 has a shot to win like they did last year?
If it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Colton Herta, isn't it? I think he's got the experience of coming up through the field in what could be tricky conditions, the same as what we've had here today. If 35% chance of rain, you say, so it's closing up a little bit more as the camera glitches back in. Seriously, it's because it's been on all day, the laptop. I've got to kick one of the leads and give it a little bit of a break for 3 hours. But yeah, I think we're going to see something really fun from Colton Herta today. No longer with Brian Herta, of course. That's something I've heard on the call of practice, is that Brian Herta's not coaching him, at least this weekend. Don't know if it's a permanent thing, but this weekend Brian Herta's not with Colton. So there's a dynamic shift there for the first time. Got to get used to a new race engineer, strategist in your ears. So I think it'll be good. I think if it goes mixed conditions, then Herta will be right up there because he's done it before. Throw in Simon Pagenaud as well from Meyershank Racing. Mixed conditions. He won here a couple of years ago as well in similar vein as well. So I think we're all banking on the rain to come in as well. But the one good thing is at least NBC aren't going on air when the cars come out the last corner to take the green flag that they did not last year, but the year before, and catch everybody by surprise. That, oh, we're this close to green? Blimey. So we've got more time, I think, to hear from the drivers before they get in the car and understand what their strategy is for the plan of things. and understand where that rain is coming from if it does come in. 35% chance isn't that much, but IMS seems to have its own climate at times as well. You can say it's not going to rain, then the entire practice day gets washed out. Think back to the open test last month for the 500. It was supposed to be a 2-day event. It got washed out before we even attempted to start it because of the lightning and the rain in the area that flooded the circuit. So that rain could just crop up anywhere. So be on your toes. 3 hours to go still, so anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. It's going to be really interesting to see what Colton can do this year now that his father has split from that strategy role. That was back in April when that occurred. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see this year now with different circumstances with the race, at the same starting position. It's going to be very natural, I think, for a lot of folks to compare. Well, last year you got the win. This year, well, last year we had some changing conditions. We may not get that, and it's going to be really hard because you have all the past winners of this race since we've been coming here since 2014 in the field today. That includes Simon Pagenaud and Rinus VeeKay. Both of them have had a really rough start to 2023. Both of them are starting outside the top 15, struggling in the points, just to give you an idea. Rinus VeeKay, 19th in the points. Simon Pagenaud, 21st. Who's between them? His teammate, Helio Castro-Neves. Ahead of both of them in the points. This was just astounding. Agustin Canapino, the rookie, is 18th. And Marcus Armstrong, 17th. You do not anticipate to have two rookies ahead of Rinus VeeKay with Ed Carpenter Racing and Simon Pagenaud with Meyer Shank Racing. This is just not going good. If both of those drivers or one of those drivers were to have a poor run today, a poor month of May, would the season be essentially a write-off at this point? And the teams start looking at rebuilding with or without their current drivers?
Oh, that last part is like really juicy question, isn't it? Normally, I would say the Indy 500 would be their big opportunity to regroup because it's double points. It's not double points anymore. That got shifted. We're back to normal points for the 500, which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on where you stand on how the 500 should be ranked. Personally, I think it should be double points just for that one event, not adding double points to the finale, but because the 500 is your big dual event and it is 500 miles, it should at least have a little bit more points than the normal races. Maybe not double, but maybe just like add an extra 10 on or something other as well, just to make it a little bit more special, like maybe 35% points instead of the 450. We'll see. But at the moment, it is going to be just a normal point event. So if they have a terrible month of May, that's 2 weeks wasted. That's another reason I think it should be double points, because you don't just spend 1 weekend there. You spend 2 whole weeks running around the oval, getting the car as best as you possibly can. And it could all go wrong. So if they don't have a great month of May, then the season is a write-off, because you can't come back from that. You cannot, because then you've got no car that works on road courses and no car that works on the big oval. So it would be a write-off. Rinus VeeKay, no, we can't get rid of him. Simon Pagenaud, it's a possibility that he could not be with Meyer Shank next year, but Helio Castroneves is there again after he left and returned. So I think the only one we've got to risk losing is Simon Pagenaud from the racing series. VeeKay is still too young to just be dropped because he's had one bad season. If that's the case, Alexander Rossi would have gone as well, and Colton Herta would have gone as well if we drop him after one season. So VeeKay can stay. Pagenaud, on the other hand, it's a couple of bad seasons now, and if he has a bad month of May, I think they'll be looking for a restructure there ahead of 24 for Meyer Shank Racing. Maybe both their drivers a reshape.
Yeah, after Helio won the Indy 500 Meyer Shank race and they're going to run full-time, it just seems like nothing has gone according to their plans. I couldn't imagine they were hopeful for top 10 finishes, podium finishes maybe. None of that has come out at all from the last 2 years, and I would have to agree. Simon Pagenaud, maybe the one driver that's going to be looking at being replaced, bringing a rookie, or somebody that's a rookie this year and off to a good start, give them an opportunity with a better team. But of course, be really interested to see what happens with Meyer Shank and the Honda relationship after what happened with the Rolex 24 hours miss. And Honda seems to be really unhappy with that. And Rinus VeeKay, talented young driver. We know Ed Carpenter is not exactly the top tier team. I think the Indianapolis 500 will give us a good indicator where that team is overall because we're going to have Ed Carpenter in the field. Rhinus VK, he's always fast in this race. If they're coming out fast in this race, okay, Ed Carpenter seems to be there. But if they're not fast, if they're mid pack, I think that starts to show this might be something within the team, not so much VK and his poor season. We'll get into NASCAR short of a brief World Rally Championship update going on right now. They're in stage 13, and overall, the leader is Kali Rovanpera. He's been leading this quite pretty much straightforward from everybody since Danny Sodor and Thierry Neuville with the Hyundais are second and third. Then you have Escapacalapi in fourth place and Autonic in fifth place in Rally Portugal. So overall, it's been a pretty solid race weekend. We did see some drama yesterday when the leading car in World Rally Championship did crash out, I believe caught fire and was out for the day. Kali Rovanpera trying to get another win and secure his spot up ahead. Now, Joshua, very excited to have you be part for the NASCAR coverage here. And it's pretty straightforward because no qualifying yet, but we're going to have the throwback weekend at Darlington where all the vintage paint schemes are. And I know something I have to ask you because you'll follow a bunch of motorsports series. NASCAR has this throwback weekend. Occasionally we see a throwback paint scheme here and there. Do you think another series like IndyCar, Formula One, MotoGP should have one weekend where it's like, hey, we encourage all the teams run their throwback liveries and have a throwback theme race?
Yes, I really do. I really do. I want to see the West McLaren livery as well that they had on some of the bikes as well. I want to see some of the classic stuff from the Ducati lot. Repsol Honda had some classic liveries as well that was a bit different to what they had today. The same for Yamaha. I'd love that. Formula One, yeah, I'd love to see some old liveries as well. Aston Martin could be a bit cheeky and put their cars in Jordan yellow because the original team was Jordan. Mercedes could put their cars either in white or back to silver, or if they really want to be cheeky as well, put it in the Tyrrell colours, the bright blue with white because the car was Tyrrell. Then it moved up as well. Stewart, actually, was it Stewart? Stewart to BAR to Honda to Braun to Mercedes. Yeah, so it's actually Stewart. No, it was Stewart. No, Stewart's Jaguar, isn't it?
Stewart, Jaguar, Red Bull.
Yeah. So I'm right. It's Tyrrell that then went on to the Mercedes team now because it went from Tyrrell to BAR to Honda to Braun to Mercedes. So yeah, put it in a Tyrrell livery, put a Red Bull in a Stewart livery, pure white with the Scottish tartan on the side as well. We've seen that before because they've done a pure white livery throw off back as well. Just get some classic ones in, get some classic teams. Go back to your origins because every F1 team isn't really the F1 team. Renault has had so many iterations that they're actually between three current teams on the grid if you go back far enough. Williams, the same. BMW Sauber is a throwback maybe with Sauber, Alfa Romeo and all that lot. It all goes intertwined with everything else. So I think some throwback weekends would be great. Think of another series that could possibly do it, that it would work. I think IndyCar should do one. I know we see a couple of them, but I think IndyCar would be great to see some classic throwbacks as well. And of course, with McLaren, with F1 McLaren, you've got only one livery you can choose from for a classic throwback, hasn't there? You've got to go white front with a red back or an orange back because we've actually got that similar livery at the 500 for McLaren this year, and I'm loving it. I wish they did white front with the orange back. That used to be the red back as well. It used to be the Marlboro cigarettes logo as well on the car, but they've changed it to make it more McLaren livery to comply as well with all the smoking regulations as well. So I think that's fantastic. I love it, and I love that livery. And also Porsche, if they do end up in Formula One, then bring in as well the pink pig, put that on a car as well, and the Rothmans livery for Williams as well. That was a really iconic livery for them as well. Another cigarette brand, but you can do the colours without the cigarettes on it. I mean, in '97 when we had the TV ban on smoking advertising, they had the liveries, but with question marks in the background where the logo should be. So I'd love it. I'd love a throwback weekend, and I'd absolutely love the classic liveries as well.
There's something about the classic liveries, and especially I know in NASCAR we see a lot of them. They no longer use paint; they're wrapped, so you don't have that exact same. But IndyCar, like I'm looking forward to the McLaren livery, where you got the old IndyCar livery, the orange livery, and the black livery representing the triple crown of the Indy, Monaco, and 24 Hours.
Oh, it's
We got
brilliant.
a comment in the chat room from Adam. He loved to see the classic yellow and blue livery from Williams in F1. That would be awesome. We saw Sebastian Vettel drive that car around. That brings back fun memories of being young, seeing Nigel Mansell racing that livery, fighting with Prost. Senna for the championship in '92. So, yeah, I would support you with seeing more throwback weekends in different disciplines of motorsports. MotoGP would be a lot of fun too, especially where we see, some of the past, like the Camel sponsor, that bright yellow and blue. Yeah, you're not going to put Camel on it, but you could have that bright color there. Repsol Honda, well, it's been Repsol for the longest time, so probably just look a little different, but it's still
Like a '90s version, yeah.
a '90s version. But yeah, I think what NASCAR has with the throwback weekend, very popular with the fans. Hopefully, we can see other series because we see it, one team or two will do a throwback livery in recognition of something with a sponsor or something great. But for our entire series to say, hey, we encourage everyone to do a throwback scheme, especially I think Formula One. If they were to pick a race that people don't generally get excited about, like the Hungarian Grand Prix, I know some people, that's
Yeah.
pass, but you make it a throwback weekend, well, you're looking forward to the special paint jobs.
They had the opportunity, didn't they, at Silverstone for the 70th anniversary, and a few teams put some special things on. I was screaming to say, just do a throwback. We're in the middle of a pandemic at the time. We're all in lockdown. Formula One was on as well. I was like, just throw it in. Go on. I mean, I was one of the people who were saying, let's move it from the wing start grid back to the original start grid over at Woodcote. And it didn't happen, unfortunately, but I think the 70th British Grand Prix anniversary was a bit of a letdown, really. We had a great race the week before, then it all went a bit boring the next week. So it's proved that you have hit and miss at Silverstone. It all depends on the track data you get there. But yeah, throwback weekend, got to happen. And maybe Spa. Spa would be a good place to do a throwback weekend, actually. That'll hype up Monza too. Do it at a good classic track as well, maybe. Or as you say, a race that is boring. Ideally, Hungary, sometimes, unless it rains, it's a bit dull. France would have been actually a great idea. If that goes back on the calendar, make that a throwback weekend. The birthplace of motor racing is France. So have that as a throwback weekend would be a brilliant idea and add some special fun to it.
Yeah, some special fun to it. I feel like the throwback weekend has helped Darlington essentially revitalize, so now they're back to 2 cup races compared to just 1 for a while. This is the first weekend for NASCAR, and I think it's really exciting because you got the throwback weekend. Then you're going back, throwback style, to North Wilkesboro, a track we haven't seen since 1996. I was 12 years old when that last race occurred, and I was like, boy, I'm so thrilled to see that. Then they're going to race at a Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte. So it's like IndyCar is the month of May at Indianapolis. NASCAR, they're in the Carolinas, South Carolina this weekend, North Carolina for the next 2 weekends. This means for the drivers, we've heard some of them, they're not taking their buses. They're just going to drive to and from the races. The teams, you don't have to drive cross-country. The long-haul drivers, not that long. Could this weekend be a good opportunity, you feel, especially for every team that hasn't had that great of a start, to sort of have that reset break, like, okay, this is a weekend where we're not on the road too much, and we could really put a lot of data back into the shop much quicker.
Yeah, I think this is sort of what everyone's been waiting for, isn't it? To get back for a nice stable run in the championship, regroup as well. I know Larson wants to regroup a lot as well after having a few up and down races as well in the past 7 days as well. The past 14 days now as well, with 2 races running back to back. And I think as well, there's a few that have had poor starts, as you say, wants to regroup, get some data on the road. And to be fair, the one person I'd be looking at as wanting to regroup, calm himself down would be Ross Chastain after having a very difficult a couple of races as well, where he's been the focus of everybody's attention for critical media acclaim as well, from both journalists, fans, and everything, for his accidents and actions as well. This is time for him to calm down, relax, and get focused on where he needs to go for the remainder of the season, and concentrate everybody on getting to the playoffs as well, and getting set for a title run.
A title run will be great for Ross Chastain, and I agree. Just focus on going out there, getting the racing done, try to stay under the radar. I don't think you could win a championship if you continue to be the focal point of questionable racing habits, getting in fights, having drivers upset at you. I know this is not the same 90s era NASCAR where the drivers will sort of teach the other drivers about respect on the track, because at the end, you win, you're in the playoffs, you get a championship, that could extend your career. We're not, I think, going to see drivers of the past era where they have 20, 30-year careers with maybe 2 or 3 wins a season. Darlington, of course, one of the hardest tracks for the Cup Series, and we're coming off Kansas Speedway, another tricky track where we saw some phenomenal racing. But the thing they have in common, Denny Hamlin, who won at Kansas, he leads all active drivers with 4 wins here at Darlington, the track too tough to tame, the Lady in Black. I think he has to be a favorite to get this race win. Do you agree that you think he's going to be one of the favorites to make it a back-to-back weekend and really establish himself as a championship contender again?
Do you know, I do. I really do. This has been such impress from Denny Hamlin over the past 2 races as well. And even the one I covered as well, he didn't do too well in, but I thought, wow, he's got pace. And there's a different composure around him at the moment as well. He's a bit more confident. He's a bit more ballsy with the moves he makes in the car as well. So I think if he can win here at Darlington, we're going to have a absolutely fantastic run for the title. 4 wins already this season, as you say, leading everybody in the standings going into the playoffs. Get on with it. Come on. I mean, I hate that we've got to do all this mathematical stuff for the playoffs as well. We can't just run on points. It makes it complicated. But he could be in it. And I think it all comes down to the last race anyway, but he'll get it. He is in a good position just to keep consistent. He's got a new sort of understanding of what it takes in modern NASCAR's group with the new generation of cars. So yeah, I think I agree. He'll be up there this weekend as well. And I'm looking forward to calling this race, by the way. So looking forward to it. Third one of the year I've called for USRN, and I'm looking forward to being in the box for it tomorrow.
Of course, definitely encourage everyone, be sure to follow on USRN. And I agree with you that Denny Hamlin, the timing too, he introduces his summer bracket challenge for NASCAR tournaments out, and all of a sudden he's doing better. It's like, oh, he really wants to win his own challenge. It's just the timing of it. But yeah, I just see that team just seems to be really good. They're coming to a track. If they get a win here at the track too tough to tame, that's going to be huge momentum. I think everybody has to be on watch, because we know there's a couple other drivers that got 2 wins this year. I would be very concerned if Denny Hamlin gets 2 wins. I think he'll be a hard person to beat. That leads us to pick a winner, Josh. One of the hard parts of this weekend is picking a winner. We'll start with MotoGP. Nobody, I believe, got Brad Binder for the sprint race. So when it comes to the Grand Prix, not Brad Binder, Jorge Martin.
Yeah.
Who do you see getting the sprint race? The Grand Prix win.
I would, it's so hard to tell, because it's going to be one of the KTMs, I think, and I can't tell which one's going to be. Instinct is saying Binder's going to do it again and get to the front, but my brain is saying Jack Miller with that demon start, and if he keeps it on the track, he's going to be there. I'll go Jack Miller. Either way, I'm so far. Where am I now on the board? I'm on 7, so that's something as well. But to be fair, Ed is leading again on 14. I don't know how he's doing it. It's really frustrating me when we commentate together. It's like, how are you getting these right week after week? So yeah, Ed's now playing, getting 14. But yeah, I'm going to stick with my guns there for MotoGP and say Jack Miller will win tomorrow.
I'm right behind you there. It's something else. I'm still not convinced the KTM's win. I don't know why. I think I'm still going with the Ducati. I don't think Martin is such a longer race. I'm afraid he's going to crash. I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia. He may seem like the safe bet, but I think he seems to really excel. If we had another 13 laps today, could be a very different story. I think he's going to get it done. IndyCar later today, who do you go with?
Pato Award. I've been thinking it since yesterday in the qualifying, and fifth on the grid, such a great opportunity. Likes this track, and seems to be the best up there at the moment from a crazy qualifying segment as well. So, yeah, Pato Award's my pick a winner for IndyCar. Lock that in now.
I'm going to go with the driver that beat him over in the first race of the year at St. Pete's, Marcus Ericsson, up there in the top 10. I think he could put together a good run, try to get that win. Last but not least, NASCAR Cup Series, Goodyear 400, Darlington, throwback weekend. Who are you going to tame the lady in black?
I was going to say it was going to be Kyle Larson, but I'm starting to have second guesses there. So I'm going to go with the driver we've been talking about to do a double. I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin to win it as well. That's a stab in the dark. I hope I'm not wrong, but yeah, I'll go with Denny Hamlin to win it.
I'm going with Denny Hamlin too, because 4 wins at Darlington, coming off this win at Kansas, such a tough track. He's going to do it here. I think he's one of the favorites. If it's not him, maybe Martin Truex Jr., but I see one of those 2 Toyotas being up there. And a comment from Adam in the chat room with his pickle winner picks, where we got Brad Binder, Grosjean, Byron, and the number 7 Penske Porsche. That reminds us, Porsche in IMSA is starting up shortly. Do you have a pick for the Porsche, the IMSA race today?
I don't actually, so I'll stick with Adams as well, just to get me points on the board to get closer to Ed, really. I'll stick with the number 7 Penske Porsche as well. I'll trust Adams' judgment on that 100%. It's been so busy, I actually forgot IMSA was on. And then I also forgot until Casey Campbell told me yesterday that USF 2000, I missed their first race with the car barrel rolling as well, so I had to go back and watch that.
The number 7 Porsche, that was my pick earlier today. I've seen on Twitter, pick a winner, Kobe has it, so I think we're all on the right track.
Oh, good.
So I don't see Ed has gone with the number 60 Mars Shanks Racing, so there is potential that could be caught up. Alex Fleener, who's up there in the points as well, went with the 01, so we encourage everyone to participate and pick a winner. And be sure, if you're still watching us, click on the link to Joshua Burt's channel. And once again, congratulations on hitting 1,000 subscribers.
Oh, thank you.
So, and link in the video description. We thank him and everyone for making Grid Network work. Big way you can help us continue our work. Invest in us through Patreon, as these fine folks have. Once we hit $500 a month, we'll be trying to get folks to the racetrack more frequently. And you can even buy a coffee, and you can make the coffee out to a specific on-air person. So you want to give coffee, share kudos to a particular on-air personality here on the Grid Network, you could do that. Links in the video description. Be sure, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the bell icon, like, and subscribe. This helps us with the algorithm, spread our good motorsport content across all the viewers on YouTube and throughout social media. And be sure to visit gridranking.com for the latest articles from the race weekend. For Joshua Birch and Joshua Birch Motorsports and Joe Sandiego, thank you for watching and enjoy the races. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.